We're starting off with this to shine that big spotlight on the absolute state of Canada. Governed by idiots leads to idiocy. It is idiocracy in real time. But it's not just government officials. It's every aspect of government. Police, legislative branch, members of parliament, and the judiciary. There are some stories you read and you say, can't be true. I must be missing something. It cannot be true. Or they must have misunderstood something. I think I'd better go straight to the source. This is a story coming out of Canada, coming out of British Columbia. We often say that British Columbia is the epicenter of woke in Canada. British Columbia, Victoria Island, Vancouver Island, Victoria. In their city hall, we'll fact check this afterwards, they flew the flag of menstrual equity. No, we're going to fact check it right now. They flew the flag of menstrual equity. Flag of what is that, you might be asking? Equity. Victoria. What is it? It's a flag that looks like a dirty tampon. Did they take it down here? Well, you won't believe it. This is from their actual Twitter feed of the city of Victoria. Today, we join efforts to reduce the stigma around periods and work towards menstrual equity. City Hall will light up red and display the period flag on our community flagpole. I shit you not, people. Do you know who thinks that there's stigma around periods? Misogynists, idiots, buffoons. It's like, oh, hey, we got to reduce the stigma around doing a number 2. No, you don't. Because normal people don't think there's any stigma around natural, normal, healthy body functions. I got to bring it back up and I got to read it one more time. I cannot believe this is the world in which we live. Today, we join efforts to reduce the stigma around periods and work towards menstrual equity. This is not parody, people. This is the City of Victoria official account. They will display the period flag. Do we have a picture of the period flag? Oh, I wonder why only people they approve of can reply. Do we have a picture of the period flag? I've got it. It's the periodic table, except it's not science. Period flag Victoria images. I need to see what the period flag looks like. Why don't I see the period flag? I can't find the period flag. It doesn't matter. That's the absolute state of Canada and British Columbia in particular. And I read a story about a man, I'm not using euphemisms, people, a pedophile who pled guilty to possessing child pornography and distributing child pornography, allegedly. It's not allegedly anymore. He pleaded guilty to it. But as I'm reading it, I'm like, allegedly. Okay, there's no way that a man who possessed and distributed child pornography gets no jail time, as being reported in CTV News. No jail time for BC man with, quote, relatively modest, end quote, child porn collection, judge rules. This story contains disturbing details, but the man shall be allowed to serve his time in community. A BC man convicted on child pornography charges has been allowed to serve his sentence in the community, in part because of the, quote, relatively modest, end quote, size of his collection. A judge has ruled Mark Keenan pleaded guilty to possessing and distributing child pornography in Kelowna, British Columbia, Kelowna Provincial Court, was handed a conditional sentence of 2 years less a day. The 54-year-old will be under house arrest for the first 18 months of his sentence, then bound by a 6 p.m. curfew for the remainder. Because you're going to do child pornography. Nighttime is the scary time. You got to. I'm going to keep this in the backdrop. Nah, forget. I don't need to come back to that. I didn't believe the article. I said, okay, so they're getting something wrong, much like people are sort of misunderstanding the big victory against Gavin Newsom's TRO or injunction or lawsuit against Trump. We'll get to that in a bit as well. I'm like, someone's misunderstanding something. This can't be the case. No, it's the frickin' case. So here's the decision. Anybody who wants published decisions in Canada, you go to CanLII, CanLII. It's like the Canadian Legal Institute of Insanity, as far as I'm concerned. And you can get a bunch of decisions. If anybody go in there and Google my name, you'll find a bunch of decisions that I was in, one of which broke my freaking heart because I got my ass handed to me by a judge. Not me, my client. Speaking of this is in the provincial British Columbia, in the provincial court of British Columbia. The Honorable Judge Andrew Tam. I wanted to see where this judge might have been born. Call me prejudiced, whatever. Call me whatever the fuck you want. I don't care anymore. I want to know if this is a foreign-born judge or a Canadian-born judge. If that's irrelevant to you, good. It might not be irrelevant to me, because when 23% of a population are now foreign-born, when 20% of members of parliament are now foreign-born, you import potentially different cultures, different ideologies that are not totally commensurate, cohabitable with Western values and Western ideologies. Or maybe Western ideologies have now just gotten to the point of actual endorsement of forgiveness of pedophilia. Listen to this. Mr. Keenan is before the court for sentencing. He pled guilty to one count of possession of child pornography and one count of distributing child pornography. These offenses were committed between September 10 and September 30. Bear in mind, people, 2018. Holy shit. Hey, the system moves fast. Hey, 7 years. Bear in mind those dates, because it was only 20 days of possessing and distributing child pornography. So he gets forgiveness for that. Circumstances of the offense. Tumblr, a social media network platform, detected images that were suspected child pornography updated by Mr. Keenan's account. They alerted the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who in turn alerted the RCMP. After an investigation into the holder of the account, the police executed a search warrant at his residence. Forensic analysis of his electronic devices revealed that he had accessed 6 images between September 10 and September 30, 2018, that met the definition of, quote, child pornography, end quote. These images depicted boys between the apparent ages of 9 to 16. The victims were essentially naked, and the images focused on the genitals. In one image, one boy was forced to kiss the mouth of another boy. In another image, an adult was seen touching the genitals of the victim, and the victim was forced to touch the genitals of the adult. These 6 images form the basis of the possession charge. I was going to, as if there's innocuous child pornography. Some of it might be much worse than others. There's no such thing as innocuous. And this is not even innocuous based on what the judge is accepting as findings of fact for the purposes of the sentencing. Tumblr platform permits users of blah, blah, blah. Then there was a distribution. So CTV News uses the word modest, and I just had to go and see if that is a direct quote from the decision. And it is. A fit sentence, says the judge. As has been often said, sentencing is a very individualized process. To be sure, legislation in higher courts will guide the sentencing judge and in some respects set parameters, but each case will need to be decided on its own facts. That gives the judge the power to do whatever the hell they want. If it's a politically disfavored person, someone they don't like, throw the book at them. Someone they do like, I'm going to a little slap on the wrist. Maybe he even likes it. Yada, yada. What is it? If the individual offender before the court for a very specific offense that the court is sentencing. Okay. It is the individual offender before the court for a very specific offense that is sentencing. Having considered all of the principles that come to bear on the circumstances of the offenses and of Mr. Keenan, with the helpful submissions of both counsel, I have concluded that the case has been made for a conditional sentence. The preconditions have been met in that this case does not require a custodial sentence of 2 years or more, and the statutory minimum has been held to be unconstitutional. Further, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, in the Swaby case, I'm fairly certain it was a firearms statutory minimum of someone who is totally innocent in terms of mens rea. I'm going to double check that. I don't want to make a mistake here. Fairly certain that the case in which they decided mandatory minimum sentences were unconstitutional was a firearms case. Further, I am satisfied that allowing Mr. Keenan to serve his sentence in the community would not pose an undue risk to public safety, seeing that he has been at large for the last 6.5 years without incident. The more difficult question is whether allowing Mr. Keenan to serve his sentence at home rather than a correctional facility would be consistent with the principles of sentencing, especially those of general deterrence and denunciation. 34. In this court's view, what sets this case apart somewhat from the other cases cited is the relatively modest size of Mr. Keenan's collection of 6 images. Although there is no strict mathematical relationship between the size of the collection and the length, or indeed type, of sentence, the size of a collection has often been held to be an aggravating factor. It stands to reason, then, that a modest collection, while not a mitigating factor, could nevertheless distinguish it from other cases. Additionally, with respect to the distribution charge, the court takes into account this referred to Mr. Keenan having these discussions online with other like-minded individuals. If this doesn't piss you off and enrage you and make you say the whole fucking system has lost its ever-loving mind, nothing will. With respect to the distribution charge, we take into account the fact that he was only having these discussions with other like-minded individuals, i.e. pedophiles. He was only having these discussions of child pornography with other adult pedophiles. What the hell alternative is the judge accepting here? Well, if he had entertained these discussions with children, that would be even worse than engaging in pedophile distribution with other pedophiles. Holy sweet merciful hell. Without minimizing the seriousness or gravity of this conduct, I'm going to do it in the way of the sentence. And the consequent harm, the circumstances here did not result in the type of harm discussed in the excerpts from Friesen. And Friesen is another Supreme Court decision, and we studied that one. Additionally, Mr. Committee committed these offenses over the course of a few weeks, compared to the longer periods of offending in some other cases cited. Taking the global set, the court is satisfied that permitting him to serve his sentence in the community with strict conditions that significantly restrict his liberty would not be inconsistent with all the applicable principles. Can you believe this shit? Like, you try not to get blackpilled. You try not to be too cynical. You try to say good reason will prevail at the end of the day. The fact that he only had 6 highly graphic images of child pornography and that he only engaged in distribution with other pedophiles, and that he hasn't done anything in the last 6.5 years after having been charged and awaiting his sentencing, mitigates in favor of him not going to jail. So holy hell, people, it was accurate, it was true, and it's the absolute state of Canada. Serenity now.